The Green Mile cast reveals what most fans never figured out. That will shock you. What if everything you thought you knew about the Green Mile was only half the story? Behind the tears, the miracles, and the prison bars lies a vault of secrets the cast and crew never shared until now. From shocking deleted scenes to hidden symbolism and off-screen transformations, these revelations will change how you see this beloved classic forever. If you think you've seen The Green Mile, think again. Before we reveal what most fans never figured out, hit that like button, subscribe to Uncovered Tinseltown. Uncovered and get ready to experience the film in a way you never imagined. Tom Hanks. In The Green Mile. Tom Hanks delivers one of his most understated yet powerful performances as prison guard Paul Edgecombe. While audiences were moved by his character's inner conflict and compassion, few know the depth of preparation Hanks undertook to embody the role. Beyond memorizing lines and hitting marks, Hanks built an entire internal world for Edgecombe, one never directly stated on screen. In interviews, Hanks revealed that he imagined Paul as a former World War I combat veteran, a man who had witnessed the horrors of senseless violence long before taking a job on death row. This imagined past explained Paul's calm demeanor, moral hesitation, and his horror at the sadistic cruelty of younger guard Percy Wetmore. According to Hanks, Paul's trauma informed every reaction, especially in scenes involving John Coffey. One of the most emotional moments in the film when Paul breaks down in front of Coffey and admits his anguish over executing an innocent man wasn't entirely in the script. Hanks brought his own vulnerability into that moment, channeling the character's internal burden. The scene has since been cited as a defining emotional moment in late 90s cinema. Off-camera, Hanks played a quiet but pivotal role in mentoring Michael Clarke Duncan, who was new to leading roles at the time. Between takes, he helped Duncan refine his emotional timing and maintain composure during difficult scenes. Director Frank Darabont credited Hanks not just with anchoring the film, but with elevating everyone around him. It's no exaggeration to say that The Green Mile might never have been made without Hanks's involvement. His casting was a deciding factor for Warner Brothers to approve the film's $60 million budget and 3-hour runtime. His performance still resonates decades later, not because he was loud, but because he knew when to be still. Michael Clarke Duncan. Before he became John Coffey in The Green Mile, Michael Clarke Duncan was far from a household name. At 6'5" and nearly 300 pounds, he'd worked as a ditch digger and bodyguard for stars like Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Acting roles, when they came, were minor security guards, bouncers, intimidating figures with few lines. Then came a life-changing opportunity. Duncan nearly didn't audition. Convinced he lacked the emotional range, he hesitated until his manager insisted. When he finally read the script, particularly the line, "I'm tired of people being ugly to each other," the room fell silent. Director Frank Darabont later said he knew instantly they'd found John Coffey. But landing the role was only the beginning. Duncan worked with renowned acting coach Larry Moss to tap into emotional nuance. He observed terminally ill patients and children to model Coffey's innocence and spiritual weight. The result was a performance that balanced physical might with gentle vulnerability, never forced, always felt. To prepare, Duncan often stayed in character between takes. He kept his voice soft, his posture closed off, his presence grounded. When Coffey heals Paul Edgecombe or Melinda Moores, Duncan doesn't just perform miracles, he channels empathy, pain, and exhaustion. His efforts earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, a rare feat for a near unknown. Though he lost to Michael Caine in The Cider House Rules, Duncan's performance is still widely considered one of the most memorable in 1990s cinema. What most fans never knew was how much of his real life Duncan poured into Coffey childhood trauma, the desire to protect others, and years of being overlooked. The Green Mile didn't just launch his career, it revealed the power of unseen talent finally given the space to shine. Frank Darabont was already respected for adapting The Shawshank Redemption, but The Green Mile would become the project that tested his creative convictions. Following Shawshank's underwhelming box office performance in 1994, studios were hesitant to greenlight another slow-paced prison drama, especially one based on a serialized novel running over 3 hours. But Darabont saw something others didn't. He believed Stephen King's story wasn't about fantasy, it was about humanity, morality, and transformation. Studio executives pushed him to shorten the 189-minute runtime and cut the epilogue, arguing the film was too long and emotionally heavy. Darabont refused. He knew the story needed to breathe. The final scenes, elderly Paul Edgecombe revealing the burden he's carried for decades, were shot first and framed the entire emotional journey. Darabont's attention to visual symbolism was equally deliberate. From the choice of green linoleum flooring to subtle lighting cues, he orchestrated the visual language of the film to echo themes of mortality, redemption, and compassion. The weather, often overlooked, became a storytelling device, storms reflecting turmoil, calm skies foreshadowing peace. He also gave actors space to inhabit their roles deeply. Before filming, he ordered the entire cast to spend a silent afternoon on the cell block, in character. No scripts, no rehearsal, just presence. This unconventional technique helped the cast internalize the crushing weight of routine and incarceration. Darabont insisted on building the death row set from scratch, working with production designer Terrence Marsh to ensure period authenticity. He supported Duncan's casting despite studio doubts and helped shape one of the most emotionally resonant roles in film history. The Green Mile grossed over $286 million worldwide. But for Darabont, the real victory wasn't box office. It was the preservation of emotional truth. He didn't just direct a film, he safeguarded a legacy. David Morse may not be the loudest presence in The Green Mile, but his performance as Brutus Brutal Howell is the emotional bedrock of the guard team. Standing at 6'4", Morse brought physical credibility to the role, but it was his controlled intensity and moral stillness that made Brutal unforgettable. What most fans don't realize is that Morse developed a personal ritual during production. Each day before filming, he would walk the mile set alone, retracing the steps from guard station to the execution chamber. He did this to physically and mentally absorb the weight of the space, knowing that for his character these corridors weren't just scenery. They were symbols of duty, doubt, and despair. In interviews, Morse has spoken about how the set's oppressive energy changed the cast. Designed to grow darker the farther you walked, the corridor became its own silent actor. You couldn't help but feel the moral claustrophobia, he said. It's this subtle influence that shaped his performance. Brutal's concern for justice, his simmering contempt for Percy, and the silent solidarity he offers Paul. Unlike some of the more expressive roles in the film, Morse's challenge was restraint. Brutal's power wasn't in confrontation, but in quiet resistance, like refusing to place the execution hood on John Coffey. That single gesture spoke volumes. Off-screen, Morse was known for anchoring the cast emotionally. He worked closely with Sam Rockwell and Doug Hutchison, helping choreograph volatile scenes with empathy and timing. He also collaborated with Frank Darabont to adjust key lines and movements to feel more authentic to his character's ethics. David Morse may not have received award nominations for The Green Mile, but his performance is essential. He played the moral compass among flawed men, a figure whose silence was louder than any scream. Sam Rockwell. Portrayal of Wild Bill Wharton in The Green Mile is as unforgettable as it is terrifying. His character, a violent, unpredictable inmate, injects chaos into the otherwise routine rhythm of death row. But what most fans don't realize is just how far Rockwell went to transform himself into the unhinged antagonist that made audiences squirm. At the time, Rockwell was a rising star known for indie roles. When cast as Wharton, he committed to deep physical and psychological preparation. He based parts of the performance on actual criminal profiles and studied footage of inmates with antisocial personality disorders. His goal was not caricature, but authentic menace. Rockwell insisted on staying in character during long shoot days. He performed all his own physical stunts, including the spitting, kicking, and convulsing sequences that left the crew exhausted. One scene in which Wild Bill is sedated in his cell after a violent outburst required hours of repeated takes with high energy, a feat that left Rockwell physically drained and bruised. The execution scenes took a toll as well. Rockwell later shared in interviews that the tension in the room during Delacroix's botched execution was so intense it felt like watching a real man die. Frank Darabont made sure Rockwell experienced the environment at full emotional volume before filming, further fueling the rawness of his performance. Though Wild Bill is detestable, Rockwell brought depth to the role, a look of hollow emptiness behind his eyes that hints at trauma rather than pure evil. His ability to toggle between disturbing humor and chilling violence gave the film its emotional volatility. Rockwell's career soared afterward, eventually earning him an Oscar. But it was The Green Mile that first proved he could disappear completely into madness and steal every scene while doing it. Doug Hutchison. Portrayal of Percy Wetmore in The Green Mile is one of the most skin-crawling performances in modern cinema. As the entitled sadistic prison guard who abuses power and humiliates inmates, Percy is universally despised. But what most fans never figured out is how deeply personal Hutchison's performance was. In multiple interviews, Hutchison revealed that he based Percy's persona on a real-life childhood bully who tormented him throughout school. This emotional reference point allowed him to tap into specific memories of powerlessness and flip them. Instead of playing a villain for shock value, Hutchison gave Percy a disturbing authenticity. Every smirk, flinch, and explosion of cruelty was fueled by something real. To maintain Percy's tense, twitchy energy, Hutchison used isolation techniques. He stayed away from cast bonding activities, choosing to eat meals alone and avoid unnecessary social interaction on set. This made his presence on the mile naturally unwelcome, an eerie parallel to how other characters viewed Percy. One of his most chilling scenes, the botched execution of Edouard Delacroix, was rehearsed dozens of times. Hutchison had to time his hesitations perfectly to make it believable that Percy forgot to wet the sponge. The horror of the scene rested squarely on his performance, and Darabont trusted him to handle the emotional weight without overacting. What audiences might not know is that Hutchison suffered intense backlash after the film's release. Viewers hated Percy so much that some mistook fiction for reality, sending hate mail and even confronting Hutchison in public. He later admitted that playing Percy left a lasting psychological effect. Yet that's the mark of a truly immersive performance. Hutchison didn't just play a villain, he became the embodiment of institutional cruelty. And his work remains a haunting reminder of how systems protect the worst while punishing the good. Bonnie Hunt. In a film filled with towering performances and supernatural weight, Bonnie Hunt's role as Jan Edgecombe might seem small, but it's essential. As the wife of Tom Hanks's character, she offers the only glimpse of Paul's life beyond Cold Mountain Penitentiary. What most fans never realize is that her quiet strength grounds the story's moral center. Jan is more than just a supportive spouse. In the film's quietest scenes at the kitchen table in hushed conversations, Hunt gives Paul permission to feel. She senses his pain long before he can voice it and gently pushes him toward clarity, particularly in the pivotal moment when he first mentions John Coffey's healing powers. Several of Hunt's scenes were reportedly cut from the final version. According to cast interviews, there was an extended subplot involving Jan struggling with Paul's emotional withdrawal after each execution. These scenes would have deepened her role, showing how capital punishment scarred families, not just prisoners or guards. Though her screen time was limited, Hunt prepared just as thoroughly as the leads. She worked closely with Hanks to create believable intimacy, studying real Depression-era couples and reading letters from wartime marriages to understand the emotional bond forged in hardship. Bonnie Hunt is known for blending warmth and realism in every performance, and The Green Mile is no exception. Her chemistry with Hanks feels lived in, and her emotional intelligence gives weight to key turning points. Without Jan Paul's inner transformation, would feel isolated. With her, it's anchored in love and moral reckoning. She may not have had dramatic monologues or supernatural moments, but Bonnie Hunt delivered a performance that stitched the story together quietly, authentically, and without demanding the spotlight. That's exactly what makes her unforgettable. Charles Gibson. While most fans remember The Green Mile for its emotional depth and unforgettable performances, few recognize the man behind one of its most horrifying moments, Charles Gibson, the film's special effects coordinator. Gibson was responsible for designing Old Sparky, the electric chair that delivers some of the film's most gut-wrenching scenes, especially Edouard Delacroix's botched execution. Gibson didn't just create a prop. He engineered a fully functional rig that could simulate smoke bursts, timed lighting effects, and subtle vibrations to give the illusion of real electrocution. These practical effects, combined with prosthetic work and intense lighting coordination, helped achieve disturbing realism without relying on digital trickery. His work was particularly crucial during Del's death sequence, one of the most traumatic scenes in modern cinema. The sequence had to be captured with precision because the pyrotechnics were expensive, emotionally taxing, and potentially dangerous. Multiple cameras filmed simultaneously to ensure Darabont wouldn't need repeated takes. Even veteran crew members were visibly shaken after filming. Gibson's mastery lies in his ability to make the unreal feel horrifyingly possible. Audiences may not consciously understand how the smoke lingers or how the chair hums with menace, but those details are all Gibson's doing. The more invisible his work, the more immersive the scene. Having previously worked on blockbuster films like Forrest Gump and Apollo 13, Gibson brought technical excellence with a storyteller's intuition. In The Green Mile, he didn't just support the drama, he helped shape its emotional climax. His contributions remain a testament to how behind-the-scenes artistry can elevate a story from good to unforgettable. Terrence Marsh. While much of The Green Mile unfolds in a single location, the atmosphere never feels static. That's because production designer Terrence Marsh, a two-time Oscar winner, built the film's entire death row set from the ground up, creating not just a backdrop, but a fully immersive world that shaped every performance. Unlike The Shawshank Redemption, which filmed in an actual prison, The Green Mile required a meticulously constructed set. Marsh used historical research to model the cell block after Southern penitentiaries from the 1930s. Every pipe light fixture and panel of green linoleum, the floor that gives the mile its name, was period accurate. Even the electrical wiring and panel systems were designed to reflect the era's functionality. The layout was purposeful. As characters moved further down the corridor, lighting grew dimmer, and the ceilings lowered slightly, subtly, heightening the sense of doom. According to cast members like David Morse, the set was so immersive it altered their emotional state before a scene even began. The corridor itself became a silent actor dictating tone and energy without uttering a word. The electric chair room, built entirely under Marsh's direction, had to accommodate both Gibson's mechanical rigging and the emotional demands of the scenes. Marsh collaborated closely with cinematographer David Tattersall to ensure the space could be lit differently depending on the moment, from sterile bureaucracy to spiritual agony. Terrence Marsh's design didn't just serve function, it provided a psychological blueprint. The space amplified the isolation, injustice, and eventual transformation at the heart of the story. Audiences may not notice every architectural detail, but they feel it. That's the mark of masterful production design. Without Marsh's vision, The Green Mile might have told the same story, but it would never have carried the same haunting weight. Larry Moss. When casting Michael Clarke, Duncan as John Coffey director Frank Darabont knew they had the physical presence, but not yet the emotional depth. That's where Larry Moss came in. A legendary acting coach known for his work with Leonardo DiCaprio and Hilary Swank Moss was brought in to help Duncan transform from a security-type actor into a fully realized, emotionally resonant character. Moss didn't just rehearse lines. He coached Duncan in how to soften his posture, shift his gaze, and inhabit a man whose outward strength masked a childlike soul. Duncan was used to playing enforcers and heavies. Coffee was different. Gentle, mystical, tragic. To find that inner life Moss had, Duncan studied hospital patients, spend time with children, and rehearse monologues as meditations, not speeches. One of Moss's techniques was to run scenes silently, no words, just intention. It helped Duncan understand the weight Coffee carried in stillness. In the scenes where Coffee heals Paul Edgecombe or Melinda Moores, it's not just about miracles, it's about presence. That presence was Moss's doing. He also worked behind the scenes to build Duncan's confidence. The actor was insecure about taking such a major role. Moss became a personal anchor, offering reassurance while demanding emotional authenticity. The result was a performance that stunned audiences and critics alike. Duncan's eventual Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor wasn't just a victory for him, it was validation for the quiet work of a master coach. Larry Moss took a man trained to guard others and turned him into a figure who could heal others on screen. In a film where every character is tested morally and spiritually, Moss helped birth the soul of the story. Without him, John Coffey would have been a role. With him, he became a revelation. The Green Mile may appear to be just a film about justice and miracles, but as we've uncovered, it's layered with deeper truths, artistic risks, and performances shaped by unseen hands. Now that you know what most fans never figured out, we ask you, does knowing the hidden depth behind this masterpiece change the way you see it? Which behind-the-scenes revelation surprised you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let your voice be part of the story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Uncovered Tinseltown Uncovered, where every legend has more to reveal.